Alright, so recently I watched Stranger Things 2, and you know what I thought? It was pretty good. But when I first watched the original Stranger Things, I viewed it twice in 2 weeks and enjoyed every minute of it. In fact, I watched season 1 of Stranger Things again recently and found that it was still freaking amazing. So then this got me thinking, why do I enjoy season 1 so much more? It's the same creative team, but I just felt like something was missing and I couldn't figure out what. Upon over-analysis, I found that it all boils down to one thing: focus. And story focus. Focus of story. When I say story, I don't mean, oh, it's like all those things you like from the 80s. I mean, what's the actual narrative? So you know what I did? I mapped this shit out. So here it is. Here's season 1. It looks, I know it looks, you may not be able to see from my drawing, but the story in season 1 of Stranger Things is actually very tight. One initiating event sets everything in motion. Will goes missing. This may not be the case for Nancy, but Barb goes missing under the same circumstances, and sets her on the same path as everyone else. All of the characters in this story face an opposition, either in the form of an evil organization, a face monster, some girl you found in the woods, and reasonable skepticism.
Will, that's not his body because he's in the lights, right? And there's a monster in the wall. Did you even hear yourself?
She could have just told us where the upside down was right away, but she didn't. She just made us run around like headless chickens.
Also, there's a bully with fancy hair who will knock over your camera. The story starts to get really good when the paths of the characters become intertwined. This is because all of the characters in the story have the same goal, but they just don't know it, which is why it's so satisfying to see all of them finally work together in the 7th episode. See? I circled it. That means it's important. After finally being united, the characters are split up in the last episode to resolve the conflict with the opposition the groups have been dealing with throughout the season. Even Steve gets to come in at the end and be a hero as well. He is now part of the story. Everything about the story in season 1 of Stranger Things is intricately woven and enjoyable to watch, even on multiple viewings. I can't say the same thing about season 2. Alright, now that this makes sense, why don't we just take a look at this? Look at this! What is even happening? What? Now, before we get too deep, you could say that the main story of season 2 is that Will is still messed up from season 1, and the heroes now have to stop the new big baddie, the Mind Flayer. For starters, this season doesn't really have an initiating event, but that's not the only thing going on. Season 1 had a very simple story, and Season 2 does not, and in no way does that make Season 2 better than Season 1. There's a lot going on, and sometimes it can be distracting. This is what I mean. This is Bob, he likes puzzles. Joyce is worried about her son. I'm half demon. This girl has powers and hangs out with the Suicide Squad. I'm your dad. No, you're not. I'm in a hole. It's a map. I'm the Red Power Ranger, and I'm also an asshole. Check out this lizard. Can he prove that dead Barb is dead? Which boy will skateboard take to the prom? Nancy likes Jonathan. Jonathan likes Nancy. Steve likes this baseball bat full of My dog ate my cat. Let's do Stand By Me on the train track. My name is Mike. You can see why I say the story is a lot less focused this season, but what really bothers me is its lack of interconnectivity. A lot of the main stories of the season include Eleven's discovery of her surrogate sister, the new kids from California showing up, the Mind Flayer infecting Will, and the exposing of Hawkins' lab and Barb's death. These stories have no reason to be happening at the same time, other than the writers wanted them to. The Mind Flayer, the lizard things, and the tunnels. It makes sense as to why these things are all happening at the same time. They're all connected, but the implications of them often don't. It is confirmed through a flashback that Dart is the slug thing that Will coughed up at the end of Season 1. It's safe to assume that it was planted in his body by this other slug thing that was down his throat when he was found in the Upside Down, like Alien. If this is the case, how is it that there's more than one of them? Did the one he coughed up become the queen, like in Aliens? If so, that wasn't clear, it was never shown. Maybe they all just came from the tunnels, but if they all just came from the tunnels, then what's the point of putting slugs in little boys? If the Mind Flayer's goal is to kill everyone, why does it need a spy? I don't know if the show knows how tunnels work. Tunnels go underground and aren't obligated to make the shapes of what's above them. I understand they use bodies of water, but they're not obligated to circle them either. If this is supposed to be Lover's Lake, I could just make a tunnel like this. See? With just the tunnel, it looks like a Y. Sorry if I sound like a nitpicky asshole. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that if your story falls apart when you think about it, it's probably not a very good one. It may sound as if I don't like Season 2 of Stranger Things, but that's not the case. I did like it. I just feel as if the writers forgot what Stranger Things was. One of the best parts of watching the first season of Stranger Things was watching Mike, Dustin, Lucas, and Eleven interact with each other. However, this season, there's a big focus on splitting up all the characters. There's a point where Dustin, Mike, Lucas, and Eleven are all doing different things. In addition to the splitting up of characters, another reason that this season feels unfocused is because they introduced a bunch of new characters. Not that splitting up characters and introducing new characters is a bad thing to do with a story. Empire Strikes Back does both of these things and is one of the best stories of all time.
The continuing story of our band of heroes: Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Han Solo, C-3PO, R2-D2, and Chewbacca. And introducing Lando Calrissian.
What's lost with Stranger Things is the importance of these things to the story. New to this season is the California kids, and they honestly don't have a lot to do. The creators of the show, the Duffer Brothers, said that they wanted to have a human villain for this season. Now, compared to Martin Brenner or Steve Harrington, Billy's goals don't actually conflict with the goals of the characters. Near the end of the season, his main goal is to bring his sister home.
Looking for my stepsister.
If he had brought his sister home, the end of the season would have happened about the same way, just without Max being there. Characters with opposing goals is what makes compelling stories and creates something that we like to call conflict. The characters in this season don't face as much opposition as in the last one, which is why in this season opposition boils down to bad character writing. Hopper decides to go down into a tunnel and then walk through it and then gets caught in some vines. This becomes a problem for the main characters. If Hopper didn't do that, this wouldn't be a problem. If Dustin hadn't lied about finding Dart, then the rest of the characters would have just killed him probably. They wouldn't have opposition. Anything I missed was summed up by this guy Knox on another better podcast that's not mine.
The characters are making stupid fucking decisions. Dustin is an idiot in this one, and he wasn't in the first one. And in that really cliched horror movie way of, motherfucker, you've been through this experience.
Yeah, right.
You know
That's
that
true.
there are these weird alien things from the Upside Down. Why the fuck do you think that's a lizard? What
That is
about
very
that
true.
metamorphosizing tadpole
But I
bullshit
mean,
thing?
what are the
with
odds
the
it's gonna
same
happen? What are the odds it's going to happen again? You know what I mean?
a million.
It is.
Is that a way of describing
Yeah,
odds?
it's a million. Yeah,
That's right. A million.
The kids drawing, you know, at with the speed of light because he's
Yeah.
having these memory things, and then somehow they puzzle it all together, which
Yeah, right.
seems unbelievable. And then it's all these different. It's a bunch of lines going to different locations.
What
What
are they?
could this
Yeah,
be?
right.
And then it takes ages for someone else to come in and go, it's a map. And they're like, what? It can't be a map, this series of lines going to different locations. How could this possibly be a map? It takes them so long to figure. That fucking cop just climbs down in the hole. Why? You idiot. Don't go down there.
Again, he has done it before. Yeah, you're right. He lived through the first one.
Oh my God. Yeah, you know the danger here. And yet you climb down this thing where you drop from such a height that you couldn't get back out even if it hadn't swallowed you up. It just, people are being dumb in it.
What's frustrating about Max as a character is that she's not really a character as much as she is a plot device. She's a tool used to create tension between Lucas and Dustin. She doesn't serve a lot of dramatic purpose. I mean, like, there's this one part where she drives a car, but she wouldn't have to do that if she wasn't there in the first place. The only reason she drives the car is because her brother beats up Steve. If she wasn't there, Steve would have gotten beaten up, and Steve would have probably driven the car. Bob was probably another unnecessary character added to the season. If you replace Bob with Joe Clark, the season plays out basically exactly the same. Joe is nerdy and similar to Bob, so it makes sense for Joyce to be dating him. He's an already established character that we love, and I would have actually felt something when he was killed by a bunch of demidogs. There's this crazy conspiracy guy. He does conspiracies. He proves that dead Barb is dead. He gives them some wine or something. The best addition to the show, in my opinion, is Callie, the lost sister. The internet's been up in a rage about episode 7. You know what I thought? It was freaking amazing. The episode showed us different sides of the Stranger Things universe and did a lot of world building. It also uses Callie to develop Eleven as a character. Eleven spends a lot of this season lost and confused. She thinks that by finding her surrogate sister Callie, she can find a place that she belongs. By the end of the episode, she realizes that she's not what they made her, and has to save her friends. I feel like the reason a lot of fans didn't like this episode is because it was something different, and everyone likes their Stranger Things being Stranger Things, doing Stranger Things things. The last couple episodes of Season 2 of Stranger Things try to be the last couple episodes of Season 1 of Stranger Things without really understanding what made them so great. When all the loose threads finally tangle together, it's a less satisfying moment, and leaves you going, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. 11 showing up was amazing, though, because of her development from episode 7. The plot structure for the last episode of this season even matches the one of the first season. Alright, so this is season 1, so they all meet at the house here in episode 7, and then they split off into 3 different, Here in season 2, they all meet up at the house in episode 8, which is, it's the second last episode. So they all meet at the house, and then it splits into 3 different stories. However, this time it doesn't work, because the conflicts aren't rooted in their season-long struggles. However, 11's story is by far the most satisfying of these 3 endings, because it is rooted in her season-long struggle. She spends this season trying to find her purpose, and in this last episode, she has. The other 2 things aren't really related to goals from the first episode, and are just things they kind of have to wrap up. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. This season has a snowball. Guess what? I don't like the snowball. I liked it when I initially viewed it, but upon review it appears that the snowball doesn't really have as much narrative purpose as it is just fan service. The conflict was resolved, but they said that, oh, well, we want to get to the snowball. We want to get to the snowball this season. Everyone wants to see the frickin' snowball. They just wanted to throw this little thing in to make all the Stranger Things fans go, oh, wow, it's so cool. I love this show. Those kids are so cute. They're dancing together. Oh, and Nancy gives Dustin advice about girls and oh. The reason I don't like its inclusion is because in season 1, the snowball was a dream. It was something that was never going to happen. Mike brings it up in a conversation with 11 before he kisses her, and then once again, with sounds of gunshots in the background with a flickering light, to set the tone that this was something that wasn't going to happen.
And we can go to the snowball. Promise. Promise.
This is what makes her sacrifice in season 1 so powerful. But jokes, she's back. Just kidding. Nothing matters. What are consequences? Another reason why this moment is great in season 1 is because 11 has often compared herself to the monster. In episode 6, she says that she is the monster. It's almost as if the Demogorgon and 11 are tied together by fate. The Demogorgon is the evil source of destruction, and 11 is the good source of destruction, and they're the only 2 that can destroy each other. It's poetic and amazing, and it doesn't make any fucking... Yeah, so I think I'm done. I'm pretty tired. Yeah.